Part 58. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 574. Finding something that can provide potential points for attribute talents is the only way to shorten the time. It's just that Garen has no idea at all now. Over the years, he has come into contact with various ancient objects everywhere, but none of them have any potential. He also tried to secretly hunt wild animals, such as snakes and wolves, but it also had no effect. This made him start thinking again. His judgment on the source of potential points might be biased. If the source of potential points is just the mysterious power in the Antique of Doom, then the subsequent killings in the totem world should not increase the potential. But in the totem world, whether it is a totem master or a mutated creature, there are a lot of potential points to gain, which is strange. Galen concluded that one should try in the direction of soul power. Because the power that enhances the upper limit of attributes is soul power, just like the soul seeds of evil skills deep in his soul, it will increase his upper limit of attributes by a little every year. From birth to now, his limits have far exceeded the previous attribute limits, and have reached the level of 30 points. The upper limit has an average level of 30 points. This is a very terrifying level, but the transformation of the soul seed, the power is not unlimited. After it reaches 30 points from the original 20 points, it becomes completely silent. The influence and transformation power are still there, but the growth of the soul and upper limit has stopped. This means that the power of the northern halberd or Hanyan Zhen Shui Siegong can only transform this body to a maximum of 30 points. The thing that enhances the upper limit of attributes is soul power, so the potential points that increase the next level attribute points should also be something related to the soul. Thinking of the special doom effect of the doom antiques, and the special nature of totem power possessed by totem masters, Garen had a vague feeling that soul matters should be his main direction of exploration. However, this world is still an unknown environment, and no supernatural phenomena such as extraordinary power have been seen, let alone the upper soul realm in the supernatural. Waking up from his sleep refreshed, Garen sat up and lifted the quilt. I picked up the cold water by the head of the bed and drank it. Drinking a glass of boiled water in the morning helps the body detoxify. After getting out of bed, I walked to the window and opened the light yellow curtains with a splash. Hey, on the clean white street below, a beautiful girl riding a bicycle was waving to him. It's Raphael. She changed into a white sleeveless t-shirt and still wore yesterday's water-brushed white jeans. She was riding a bicycle and waving to Galen with a smile. The fair and delicate skin reflects the dazzling white light in the sun, coupled with the equally brilliant blonde hair. It seems that Raphael's whole body is exuding a hazy halo. Galen, hurry up, she was afraid that the people around her wouldn't hear her, so she shouted unusually loudly. Garen walked out of the bedroom feeling weird, and saw Jason coming out opposite with messy blonde hair. He was obviously a little irritated by Raphael's amazing move. Is this why you asked me yesterday? He glanced at his brother, feeling extremely unbalanced. That girl was waiting down there half an hour ago. Garen was speechless. While eating breakfast, his father gave Galen a thumbs up with encouraging eyes and a proud smile on his face. He was exactly the same as his little sister Vivian. Sure enough, the little sister learned this ugly gesture from him. Mother Therese also got up and prepared to go outside to invite Raphael into the house to have breakfast together, but Galen quickly pushed her away. He drank the milk, quickly shaved off his own vegetable salad, and took more out of the bread machine. With 2 pieces of toast, I hurried out of the house and saw Raphael riding a bicycle waiting on the side of the road with a bright smile. She happened to be chatting with an aunt from the neighbor's house. Little guy, what is your relationship with little Garen? Come here so early and wait. I am his one. Raphael lowered his head shyly, with a hint of red on his face. That? You can't be. Auntie was very imaginative and decisively surprised. Yes. You have to pay attention to your health at such a young age. Auntie seemed to be in disbelief, Did you really do that? Did you do it? Raphael lowered his head shyly. Garen stepped forward speechlessly, and the misunderstanding deepened as he continued to talk. Raphael's motives were obviously impure. The neighbor's aunt greeted Galen with a smile and left quickly, saying that she would not disturb the two of them. I'll take you to the car. Raphael smiled brightly at Garen. Jia Long looked around. Normally, he should be able to see Yilian and Ji Ling at this time, but now there was actually no sign of them. He couldn't help but re-evaluate the role of that oath. Okay, Garen breathed out and sat on the back seat of the bicycle. Hold my waist and swing it down carefully. It doesn't matter, you can go, I can sit still, Garen replied casually. Well. Raphael didn't say much. He stepped on the car and the car suddenly rushed forward. Along the way, she pedaled hard and hard, and the car went faster and faster. If ordinary people were traveling at this speed, they would turn pale with fear. Why doesn't Garen hug my waist? Raphael thought for a moment with impure motives and looked back at Garen. This guy actually closed his eyes and fell asleep. No matter how bumpy the car was while sitting in the back seat, he sat firmly and slept soundly. This guy Raphael was helpless. Crossing a few streets a few times, we soon returned to school. The car screeched to a stop at the school gate, and Garen opened his eyes just in time to wake up. The two got off the car separately. By the way, Garen, do you remember the agreement yesterday? Raphael suddenly said. You mean reward? Garen raised his eyebrows. Here's this for you. Raphael suddenly stuffed a small round object into Garen's palm. Garen raised his hand and looked at it. It was an ancient black and silver badge, with a vague image of a stag on it. Most of the patterns on the edges had been worn away, as if it was constantly being picked up and played with. What's this? My grandma gave it to me. It's an old thing passed down from the past. Don't lose it, Raphael said with a smile, and then pushed the cart away from the place surrounded by a group of girls who had gathered around. Garen stood at the school gate, looking at the buck badge in his hand with a strange look on his face. A hint of refreshing and familiar breath was entering his arm from the badge. It was a little bit of something he was once extremely familiar with. Potential point. Garen's heart skipped a beat. Without this potential aura, not even a single potential point can be formed. This is just a tiny bit of aura stained on it. Garen glanced at his attribute bar. The potential point column jumped slightly, going from 0% to slightly blurred. It flickered, but that was all. The little breath just now made the potential flicker a little. Is this an antique of doom? Garen picked up the buck badge. During class all morning, he kept playing with the buck badge. He noticed that the eyes of two girls flickered after seeing the badge in his hand. Junior high school students are obviously better at hiding things than elementary school students, but compared to adults like Garen, they naturally can't hide it. Or does this thing have any special meaning? He stroked the badge and thought. He noticed that Ji Ling and Yilian were sitting far away at the other end of the classroom. They only occasionally glanced at him, and then quickly moved away. Classmate Garen, can you ask me how to solve this problem? After class, the boy behind him patted Garen on the back and handed over a small book with math problems written on it. Jialong took it and explained the problem to the boy while watching the actions of Ji Ling and Yilian. He felt more and more that there was something unusual about that ancient oath. In his eyes, it was just a small conflict between girls, but he did not expect that the result would be so unexpected. At this time, Garen saw the beautifully dressed Raphael standing at the door of the classroom, smiling and chatting with a sister. The voice was very low, and the two seemed to be whispering. Now almost everyone knew about the male-female relationship between Raphael and Garen. Even the male teacher who was packing his things and going out gave Garen a narrow look. Raphael chatted with her sisters in a low voice. Only they could hear her voice, and they didn't know what they were talking about. They both laughed together. When the students were almost gone, they all went to have lunch. Eiffel pushed his sisters away, walked into the classroom alone, and walked to the gallon table. Let's go have lunch together. I prepared delicious food specially for you. Garen looked at Ji-ling and the other two, who were talking to themselves and did not make eye contact with him at all. Okay, already feeling something was wrong, he decided to investigate the secrets here. Coupled with the ancient and strange custom of this small town where the woman is the master of the house and the man is the master of the house, the hidden things here made him feel more and more. Get interested. The two stood up and left the classroom. Garen was almost led forward by Raphael. The thing you just gave me is very nice, I like it very much. I knew you would like it. I remember you liked these antiques very much before. Raphael replied with a smile, don't think I said it casually before. I have really paid attention to you for a long time, and my grandma has already agreed. It's between the two of us. Huh? Your grandma? Garen felt that his nerves were a bit lost. Isn't this development a bit too fast? Fast? How fast is it? Go after it if you like it. Just do whatever you want. What's the use of comparing speed with others? Raphael replied disdainfully, this is what my grandma has been doing since she was a child. Tell me the truth, when you encounter good things, you have to act fast, if you are slow, there will be nothing. Your grandma is really generous. Haha, Garen didn't know how to comment. Wasn't her grandma afraid that her granddaughter would suffer? Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 575. In the spacious cafeteria, silver metal tables and chairs fixed to the ground are neatly arranged one by one, and the surrounding white walls are painted with patterns of ducks, apples, and pears. Students in twos and threes were sitting in front of tables and chairs eating food from their own plates, and some were queuing up to take out their plates at the cafeteria window. Galen and Raphael sat opposite each other at the right end of a long table. They each ate the sandwiches on their own plates, dipping the sesame sauce in the middle from time to time and taking a sip of tomato, potato, and beef soup. There was a faint buzz in the surrounding canteen, and the voices of many people talking bounced back into the empty canteen, mixed with echoes. I feel like I can clearly hear what is being said, but if I listen carefully and intently, it's just a blur. Garen raised his head and glanced at Raphael opposite. You didn't answer my question last time. What is the problem? What do you like about me? Garen put a piece of apple in his mouth. I like everything, Raphael said calmly. If I have to say one thing, it would be that you are good looking. Wouldn't it be a great honor to take you out? Then what reason do you want? Raphael shrugged. Neither of them spoke for a while. Garen felt that this little guy was a little weird. He was obviously a girl, but he had the same personality as a boy. Can you tell me what agreement you made with Yilian and the others? I can't tell you this, Raphael smiled, but you just need to know that the power of the oath is unstoppable. This doesn't just involve me and them. Really? Garen narrowed his eyes. He felt that he might have to go back to Wenwen's parents to learn some secrets about this town. As two people who have lived here for so many years, they should know some secrets more or less. This secret is likely to involve issues regarding potential points. After dinner, let's go play ball. I have a sister who has made an appointment to wait for me at the stadium. Then you can go and cheer me on. Raphael's clothes were taken as a matter of course. Garen also wanted to get in touch with her more and discover the secrets inside, so he nodded and refused. After dinner, we went to the court to play basketball for a while. After class in the afternoon, Galen went home together under the protection of Raphael. He was sent to the door of his house by Raphael's insistence, just like a boy would send his girlfriend. Bring galleons to your doorstep. After teasing Vivian at home, who called her brother Jiao Didi, Galen finally waited until his parents came home one after another. In the study room at dusk, Garen left his brother and sister alone and looked at his mother, who was sitting across from him with a confused look on his face. What's the matter? You look so solemn. Like a little adult mother. Therese smiled, reached out and grabbed Galen's face and squeezed it. Okay, are you being bullied at school? She asked softly in a soft voice. Shaking his head, Garen avoided his mother's hands grabbing his face. Mom, I would like to ask if there are any ancient traditional oaths in this town. Once an oath is made, it must be abided by. Oath, Therese thought for a moment in doubt. It has been many years since we moved here. Indeed, there is a kind of ritual here. Only the locals will abide by it. As immigrants, we just listen to I've said it, but I haven't seen it. What are they called? Ancestral oaths? Is it a ritual? Well, almost. The locals regard it as a very formal and serious thing. Our ancestors are here to pay attention to their words even when they are joking. If the ancestors are involved in swearing, someone may be killed, Mother said. Reese warned sternly. By the way, I heard that a girl is chasing you. She is said to be very beautiful. Isn't that right? Seeing his mother's face quickly turn into a constriction, Garen also knew that he probably wouldn't be able to get any more information from here. Having said so much is tantamount to saying nothing. Looking at my mother's expression, it seemed that she really didn't know anything more, so she could only give up. After chatting with his mother for a while, Garen left the room. He brought over his laptop, which was a birthday gift from his father last year. He typed a line of words on the keyboard and entered it into the internet search engine. There is a lot of information about the oath. After narrowing the scope, enter the United States, Glendo town again after blanking. Snapped. When the enter key was pressed, there were only 5 messages left on the screen. They are all oaths such as religious ceremonies, 4 of which are local public ceremony oaths, and 1 is a video of students swearing to inherit the American spirit of freedom under the flag. After carefully checking the religious ceremonies, I found that they were all public events and required a lot of preparations to be carried out, and they were either for spring plowing or fishing, or one of the festival customs. They were worthless. Turning off the computer, Galen sat on the edge of the bed, thoughtful. In this town, it seems that many women, especially local women, share some kind of special secret. This secret is ancient, solemn, and everyone sticks to the rules. It seems that the best breakthrough is the relationship with Raphael. When the relationship is close to a certain level, naturally many secrets will no longer be secrets. The rest of life was no different from usual. The only change was that the girl accompanying Garen changed from Ji-Ling and the 2 to Raphael alone. Raphael came to pick up Galleon on time every day, and occasionally gave some small gifts, always with good old objects and antiques. Garen wanted to talk to Ji-Ling and others several times, but they were deliberately avoided by the other party, so he had no choice but to give up. As time passed, he gradually got used to Raphael's presence. Occasionally, he gave Raphael some small gifts in return, and the relationship between the 2 continued to heat up, becoming like best friends and boyfriend and girlfriend. For a child, life goes by very quickly. Slowly, Yilian and Ji-Ling gradually faded out of Garen's sight, and his relationship with Raphael became better and better. He has never been someone who takes the initiative to approach others and pursues his own goals, which leaves him with little time to make friends with the people around him. However, Raphael, who takes the initiative to approach him, is slowly becoming an exception. Life in junior high school is not much different from primary school, except that students grow up faster and their thoughts are a little more mature. Garen practiced secret martial arts every day, but his cultivation was always stuck at the 2nd level, and his progress was extremely slow. He asked Raphael many times about the situation of the Buck Badge, but the information he received was unknown, saying that it was only her grandmother. Only then did I know more about the situation. This made Garen, whose skill had almost stagnated, become more and more curious. On the blue sea, the golden and red waves of the setting sun continued to ripple. The seaside is hundreds of kilometers away from Glendo. On the pale yellow beach, a teenage boy with blonde hair was slowly walking towards the sea. He was only wearing a pair of black swimming trunks, and his clothes were thrown far away on the black reef not far away. The boy has a handsome face, with a hint of feminine neutrality, giving him a feeling of weakness. He is obviously a boy, but he has a soft beauty that makes people pity. He walked slowly towards the water, step by step. His feet were submerged, then his calves, then his knees, thighs, abdomen, and chest. In an instant, traces of dark, ink-like mist spread from his body and spread to the surroundings along the sea water. The mist was like ink, quickly darkening the water around the boy. The boy seemed unaware and continued walking deeper. The strange thing is that the water that submerged up to his chest did not change at all after he left the shallow sea area and went deeper. Wow! Suddenly, there was a wave of waves on the sea not far away, and two pennant-like fins rushed towards the boy from a distance. Under the blue sea surface, two huge blue-black giant sharks swam towards the boy quickly. Their fins were like motorboats breaking through the waves, creating two arcs of white waves. That's when the fin entered the black water around the boy. The boy's weakness suddenly changed. His hands were as straight as two sharp knives, and he thrust them into the water. Laugh! The two giant sharks banged and exploded, turning into two masses of scarlet flesh. The blood quickly merged into the black water around the boy. The color of the blood was quickly covered by black, and then everything returned to the peaceful scene from the beginning. Garin frowned and raised his hands. The progress is too slow, he sighed. The power of the Claw of Hesiod has reached the level of a fighter. In addition, his physical constitution has reached the point where he can barely release his energy, so his strength has recovered somewhat. However, the rules of this world are different. It seems that he is no longer able to completely condense his spirit. Even at his current state, he can only integrate his spirit into the material and then affect external things. He can no longer release it directly as before. Suppress your opponent. But in this way, the spirit blends into the water and into the air, and it becomes something that ordinary people can see, rather than something exclusive that only fighters can see. It's just that the consumption is much higher. Garin can only maintain the release of his spirit for 10 minutes at most. The area covered by his spirit is about 10 meters with him as the center. Within these 10 meters, all creatures that enter will suffer from the terrifying spirit. Illusions are suppressed, and at the same time, the substantive vicious palm power of Hesiod will slowly and quietly penetrate into the enemy's body with his energy, gradually weakening the opponent's physique and speed. The current spirit is not so much a fusion product of essence, energy, and spirit, but rather a simple poisonous gas released from Garin's body. This poisonous gas has a strong hallucinogenic effect, can also weaken the opponent's physical speed, and is soluble in water. Garin. You went into the sea again. On the beach in the distance, a slim blonde girl was waving vigorously towards the side. Come ashore quickly, I have something to tell you. Garin looked back and saw that it was Raphael. He now likes to exercise and rides his motorcycle to the beach to swim every day after school. In essence, he is practicing Hesiod's vicious palm power. This secret martial art seems to be a standard evil skill. It actually has the effect of absorbing and melting the flesh and blood of other creatures. The foreign flesh and blood will have a good strengthening effect on the palm power. If he hunted wildly in the forest, he would most likely be found to be abnormal, so he simply stayed away and went to practice in the ocean without being noticed at all. As an evil skill, apart from its insidiousness, Hesiod's characteristic is that it is very concealable. It is estimated that even fighters of the same level will not be able to detect the movement of Gallian's secret martial power. This is also where Garin is extremely satisfied. Garin quickly retracted the poisonous mist that merged into the surrounding sea water, and turned back and swam towards the shore. His movements are natural, and the lines of his body are extremely soft. Every time he strokes the water, his body will swim forward quickly like a fish. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 576. He quickly went ashore and took the dry towel handed over by Raphael. In the past 2 years since the two met, their relationship has become so familiar that they almost talk about everything. Of course, both sides had their deepest secrets that they had not told each other. This was true for Garin, and he felt that the same was true for Raphael. Now Raphael is no longer as immature as before. In the past 2 years, she seems to have received some special education. Her thoughts have become more and more mature, and she has become more and more isolated. Apart from Galen, the other female companions around her have become more and more mature. The less, the more she is admired by her subordinates. Unknowingly, her prestige among her peers grew stronger and stronger, and now as a freshman in high school, she was already the most powerful eldest sister in the entire school. Raphael is wearing a white swimsuit, and her white arms and long white legs are the most conspicuous parts of her body. Her skin is different from other girls. As her grade increases, it is not rough but becomes more delicate. I have something to deal with at school, and I'm going to go back first. A trace of tiredness flashed across Raphael's face. You can ride back by yourself in a while, and I won't see you off. No problem, Garin nodded, seeing the tiredness on Raphael's face. She would only show such a true side in front of him. You're too tired. It's better to leave that organization to others. We're just students. There's no need to create any organization to trouble ourselves. It's okay, I can do it. Raphael waved her hand. She has always been a very strong woman, and she is equally powerful. It's just a little trouble, I'll take care of it soon. She is like a ferocious lioness, powerful and fierce, but also has a proud and beautiful side. As she grows older, this special temperament becomes more and more prominent. She is always able to make the wisest choices, and is able to make many peers and even older people acquiesce in her leadership. To put it simply, she is like a born leader. But Garin didn't understand at all what the use was of Raphael setting up a blood oath club in school. Moreover, the core members were mysterious and could not see anyone all day long. Only the peripheral members gathered together. A large number of people, both male and female, and a large number of outstanding students in the school have joined this club. Seeing Raphael turning around to leave, Garin suddenly grabbed her. Don't worry, I'll do a magic trick for you at the end. Raphael smiled, turned around and looked at Garin with an expectant expression. Occasionally, Garin would perform magic tricks on her that looked magical, which was interesting and entertaining. Garin smiled and stretched out his hands, palms open in front of her. I don't have anything in my hand right now, right? Then. He gently held his hands, right in front of Raphael's eyes, and held them slowly, as if he was holding something in his hands. Suddenly, he opened his fists. There is a small red pebble on one side of the palm. The stones are a pair, very regular and delicate, and a vague girl's face seems to be naturally carved on them. Close magic. It's amazing, Raphael's eyes flashed with wonder, and she seemed to be in a better mood. One for each person. She only picked up a pebble, carefully placed it in the palm of her hand, and then looked at Gio with a smile. Long. Okay, one for each. Garin also laughed. Raphael's thoughts have always been very mature, but also a little weird. She seems to have some kind of persistence, some very difficult goals and ideals. This is also the key to Garin slowly accepting her, although Raphael's growth cannot be compared with the same. He compared, but compared to the more naive ordinary students around him, he naturally chose Raphael, who was more able to communicate. In this subtle way, within 2 years, the two have become like friends and lovers. Putting away the red pebbles, Garen suddenly felt a heat on his right wrist, and was immediately caught in Raphael's hand. This is a reward. Raphael turned around and trotted away, leaving only a series of laughter like silver bells. Watching Raphael putting on clothes and pants from a distance, riding on her own white motorcycle, waving her hand from a distance, starting the car and driving back towards the road. The speed of the motorcycle became faster and faster, and the female knight's long blonde hair flew back in the wind. Where Garen couldn't see, Raphael's pretty face under his helmet began to grow colder and colder as he moved further away from the beach. Since you don't listen to the warning, it seems that the only option is to start a real war, she murmured, and the strong white man wearing earrings seemed to appear in her eyes. Garen stood there and gently raised his right hand to smell it. The girl's scent still lingered on it. It's really unexpected. He shook his head and smiled. He, an old monster who has lived for so many years, would actually be attracted to a young girl. At that moment, he seemed to see the shadow of his cousin Hathaway in Raphael. He continued to turn around and walked into the sea. His superb swimming skills allowed him to tread water in the deep sea and stand up straight without sinking. This is why his family was worried at first and has gradually become accustomed to his behavior. Returning to his previous position, Garen once again immersed himself in the practice of running secret martial arts. From time to time, he would use himself as bait to attract some sea sharks who wanted to prey on him, and then he would be eaten by him in a few strokes. Used to enhance Hesaz's vicious palm power. Recalling the way Raphael hurried back just now, Garen suddenly had an idea. Would you like to follow me quietly and take a look? Raphael has always been mysterious, and he doesn't know what he is doing. He has also investigated once before, but with no results, but this time it seems that something important has happened, and Garen is a little curious. After looking at the sky, the setting sun was about to sink below the sea level, and only a little arc outline was still exposed. Garen practiced for a while, and when the sky was about to darken, he turned around and swam towards the shore. At this moment, he seemed to see a shadow flashing before his eyes, a black shadow. Garen frowned slightly, feeling something was wrong. He stepped barefoot on the beach and suddenly turned around. I don't know when, but a gangster man with red and white hair stood behind him. This man was wearing flashy silver clothes, with his hands in his trouser pockets, tilting his head and staring at Garen with an unhappy expression. Who are you? Garen asked in shock. I don't know why, but I feel very unhappy when I see someone like you who is too perfect to be a man, the gangster said with a frivolous look. You don't look like an ordinary person, Garen asked, slightly surprised. So smart. I like to deal with smart people. Now, look into my eyes. The gangster stared at Garen, and his voice suddenly became softer. Garen felt dazed for a while. The other person's eyes seemed to have some kind of strange gravity and whirlpool, which led him to look at each other intently. He was about to resist, but suddenly something happened in his heart, and he suppressed the urge to rebound. When Raphael comes back later in the evening, you will find a time to use your mobile phone to send a text message to this number, a blank text message. Then you will try to keep Raphael as much as possible. Maybe letting her truly become your woman is a good way. The gangster's hazy voice seemed to come from afar. At the same time, he placed a piece of paper with a number on it in front of Garen's eyes so that he could see it clearly. Garen let go of his body and mind and carefully felt the sudden hazy feeling. This novel feeling seemed to be his own body reacting automatically. The gangster man in front of him seemed to be a natural enemy. Just a look could actually affect most of his body's instincts. Involuntarily, he knew that if he allowed his instincts to act, he would probably actually do what the other party told him to do. This wonderful feeling of being controlled was extremely new to him. But unfortunately, this feeling of being controlled may be very powerful for ordinary people and cannot be resisted, but for him, the courage he has developed can easily break through this feeling of being controlled with just a slight movement. It's like tying a hair-thick rope to a giant elephant, or covering a powerful time bomb with a paper lantern. When this feeling disappeared, the shadow of the gangster was no longer in front of him. The extremely terrifying speed, the speed of almost teleportation, even amazed Garen. It's as if the body has no weight, just like a real shadow, it moves at will and stops at will, completely ignoring impulse and inertia as if it were nothing. The evening breeze blows gently. Garen stood alone on the beach, looking at no one in front of him. The scene just now seemed to be just an illusion, and suddenly there was a faint interesting feeling in his heart. This world is finally not so boring anymore. The corners of his mouth curved slightly, and he turned towards his clothes on the rocks. Not long after, amidst the roar of motorcycles, a white motorcycle drove along the winding road towards the town of Glendo. Not long after the motorcycle left, a brown-haired girl slowly walked out from behind a certain rock on the beach. She quietly looked at the direction Galen left, took out a black mobile phone, and quickly dialed a number. "The target has left, the plan was successful," she whispered. "Be careful, don't let that woman notice your movements." A magnetic man's voice came from the other end of the phone. "Don't worry, I just held the protector away for less than a minute, and it was just a little hint of psychological control. There were no other unnecessary actions, and I will definitely not be discovered." "That's good." The male voice on the phone was silent for a moment. "I'll come find you later in the evening, wait for me." Female Han's eyes suddenly ignited with burning passion. "Well, I'll wait for you." She put down her phone, turned around and disappeared into the cracks between the rocks. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 577. Woo. Amidst the roar of motorcycle engines, Raphael was galloping on the road between the forests, leaning on the car, her long hair flying in the wind, and her eyes as sharp and captivating as an eagle. Large tracts of woods passed by her, and the car bumped and jumped from time to time, and then fell hard. Zi. Suddenly, the car moved sideways, spun a few times, and suddenly stopped in a small forest clearing. White smoke was faintly emitting from the wheels. Raphael took off his helmet and looked at several figures slowly walking out from around the forest. They were all young girls, about the same age as her. "Is Waxi back?" she asked casually, getting out of the car. "I'm back already. The train just arrived in the afternoon. I came here from the city and I'm catching up on my sleep now." One of the black-haired girls gathered around replied respectfully. "Where are the others? How many of those who went out came back?" "About 6 people are back, and the rest are trapped and unable to come back for the time being," the black-haired girl whispered. "That's enough." Raphael nodded. "The vampires are getting more and more excessive. Grandeur is still our grandeur. It is the burial place of our ancestors, not a place where foreign vampires are rampant." "President, do you want to start a war?" a brown-haired girl frowned. "I'm afraid Ji Ling and her group won't approve." "It doesn't matter, it's just a small lesson." Raphael shook his long blonde hair and said with cold eyes. "They stretched their hands too far." "Do we need to inform the elders?" a girl asked. "No need, this is what they meant." Raphael smiled. The tight black clothes highlighted her slim figure. In the increasingly dark woods, paired with the long golden hair, she looked deep and strong. She looked around and said, "Assemble half of the people and go to the North District together at 8 o'clock in the evening." "Yes." All the girls around responded respectfully. Buzz. The white motorcycle slowly stopped in front of Garen's house. Galen, who was dressed in a tight-fitting black riding suit, got out of the car. At night, there were a few suspicious-looking people on the street in front of his small building, mixed in with passers-by, quietly surrounding the entire small building. Garen glanced around calmly and found that these people all had common characteristics, and they all looked like little gangsters. It looks like he is chewing bubble gum and walking around with his hands in his pockets, but in fact his eyes are always staring at his home. Surveillance. Garin pushed the cart into the yard. He felt that just as he pushed the cart home, the people under surveillance gradually evacuated one by one. Brother. As soon as the door was opened, my sister Vivian jumped over to her. This little guy is now in the 3rd grade. He was wearing a dark red silk skirt and white children's pantyhose. His hair was raised up and pink. With her tender little face, she is already considered a pretty standard cute little loli. But this little guy admired Garin as always and liked to stick to Garin all day long. Everyone, do you look good? Vivian got out of Galen's arms and spun around in a circle, her red skirt rising slightly, giving people a light and pure feeling. It's beautiful. Our Wenwen is the cutest. From now on, she will definitely be a beauty that everyone will love. Garin picked up Vivian and closed the door with his backhand. Did you bring any gifts for Wenwen? Of course. Garin turned over his hand and took out a small piece of the red pebbles from before, with a pattern of a little duck carved on it, which looked quite exquisite. After throwing it to the little guy, little Vivian jumped up and took the stone to Jason to show off. Then there was a burst of irritable yelling and the little guy's cheerful laughter in Jason's room. It was obvious that the little devil was causing chaos and destruction to Jason again. This is completely different treatment from Garin. Garin returned to his bedroom speechlessly, took out his laptop, opened it, and connected to the internet. Enter the words Glender Town with a crackle. Press enter, and all the recent news in the town are listed one by one. The most recent one is from a day ago. 2 rangers from the Glendo Forestry Bureau were attacked by wild wolves, and the scene was horrific. After glancing at this title, Galen shook his mouse and clicked lightly on the news. After a soft snap, the page opened. In the darkness, under the white computer light, Galen carefully read this short message with only text and no pictures. The person who was attacked suffered canine bites on both sides of his neck, and most of his internal organs were cut open and eaten by wild wolves. He noticed words like this in the news. Ever since he discovered something was wrong, Garin had been paying attention to all kinds of news happening in Grandal Town. Since a few years ago, he has been collecting news information, and now, he has collected no less than 100 pieces. It's like this again. Garin closed the web page and fell into thought. There are at least a dozen news reports of being bitten to death by wild wolves in a year, a small number of tourists disappearing in the forest, and even drowning on the beach, and even the bodies cannot be found. Haha. It is really exquisitely covered up. He let go of the mouse, crossed his fingers, and placed his arms in front of the computer. Wild wolves? I have lived here for so many years, and the density of wild wolves here is not very high at all. Even if a person walks in a dense forest far away from the road, he may not encounter one for half an hour. Almost all of them are hunted. The hunters have killed them all, and there are more than 10 wild wolf killings a year. It's really possible to make it up. After closing the computer, Garin stood up and walked to the window, reached out and opened the curtains a crack, and looked out. As expected, there are still people watching outside, but the number has been reduced from the plural numbers just now to just 1. It seems that Raphael's trouble will be tonight, Garin thought thoughtfully. He thought for a moment, opened the closet and found a set of large black raincoats. This set of raincoats is everywhere in the town. There are styles for everyone to wear, and the sizes are adult styles. He put it on directly, and his whole body was immediately shrouded in the raincoat, looking like a wide black cloak in the totem world. Pulling up the hood again, lowering his head, he suddenly became a stranger whose appearance was unclear. Garin stood in front of the wardrobe mirror and took a slight breath. Kaka. His body suddenly sounded a series of clicking sounds, and soon his body shape changed slightly, his shoulders became slightly wider, and his breath completely restrained. Standing in front of the mirror, he seemed to be just a man wearing a raincoat. The mannequin has no breath of life. After such long exploration, it's time to really figure it out. He buttoned up his raincoat, walked to the window, and opened it gently. The watchers on the street below were still smoking and looking this way. Galen bypassed the window on the side of the house. The small building was backed by the forest. It was quiet behind the side, and almost no one could be seen. He gently opened the window, and when he heard the wind, a black shadow flashed, and Garen rushed out of the window, silently falling on the wall below, and falling lightly into the darkness of the forest. Without stopping at all, Garen walked towards the depths of the woods at a normal pace, wearing a raincoat. He was familiar with all the surrounding terrain and could take a detour from the woods to reach Raphael's house. The surrounding forest was so dark that you couldn't see your fingers. Only the moonlight projected from the gap above could be seen from some distance away. It was the only reference coordinate in the darkness. Not far away, Garen suddenly stopped. "Who are you?" a black figure blocked him in front of him at some point. It turned out to be the smoking monitor. He was dressed in black, his hair dyed white, and he leaned against a big tree with his head slightly raised. It was he who made the inquiry. "Say." The monitor was cold and a little impatient. Garen didn't answer, just stood there quietly without saying a word. "Could it be that you are Raphael?" Bai Mao's face suddenly changed. "Laugh." In an instant he disappeared. A sharp gust of wind suddenly appeared behind Garen, and his pale and sharp fingernails were like sharp thorns, clawing hard at Garen's vest. Snapped. The white-haired 5 fingers were blocked by an arm. A look of astonishment appeared on his face. He flashed and appeared on the other side of Garen. He grabbed the opponent fiercely with both hands at the same time. At the same time, his mouth opened suddenly. Grumble. An extremely harsh and sharp sound wave suddenly rushed into Garen's brain. Bang. The 4 arms slammed together. Bai Mao and Garen suddenly separated. They took several steps back, their chests rising and falling violently. Bai Mao opened his mouth and was about to speak, when he suddenly saw the other party's body suddenly flashing. He immediately knew something was wrong and quickly crossed his arms in front of his chest. In an instant, there was a loud roar in his mind, and the hair on his whole body stood up. The arms in front of him did not touch anything at all. The opponent's attack route was actually able to turn while moving at high speed. It hit the lower abdomen, causing a sharp pain in the lower abdomen. With a bang, his whole body flew into the air, and the spine of his body clearly showed signs of being broken and bent from the middle, just like a wooden board was broken from the middle. He rolled very far on the ground, until he hit a large bluestone and smashed it into pieces, and then he stopped in a bloody state. Damn it, Bai Mao turned over, and his body reclosed the broken spine with a click. But as soon as he stood up, a black shadow instantly appeared in front of him, and a claw dug into his heart. Bai Mao dodged in a hurry, and with a tearing sound, his right arm was torn off alive. The strange thing was that there was no blood splattering on the wound. "Ah!" Bai Mao screamed. Following the inertia of the dodge direction, he immediately flew away and fled. But immediately, a stone the size of a fist smashed into his vest, and then came out of his chest, driving out a series of flesh and blood nails and driving them into a large tree trunk. Bai Mao flew to the ground, with a big hole in his chest, but he immediately bounced back up, his face twisted, and he continued to run away. The speed and power are about the same as mine, but the opponent's skills are much better than mine. Bai Mao felt frightened and angry. He is definitely a senior vampire who is much older than me. Damn it! How could he suddenly appear here? A senior vampire. He accelerated his speed crazily, not feeling any killing intent or movement at all from the front, back, left, and right sides of his body. This further highlights the opponent's sophistication. Laugh. A white arm suddenly came out from behind his neck, and a big hole was pierced through the middle of his entire neck, which was bloody and bloody. Bai Mao froze in place, and his speed stopped instantly. "Chief, I won't let you go," Bai Mao struggled to squeeze out a few words. With a tear, his entire body was torn into pieces and scattered to the surrounding grass at the foot of the trees. Garen's figure slowly appeared on the spot. He glanced at the corpses on the ground around him and turned around to leave. Snapped. His ankle was suddenly grabbed by something, and a sharp sting came from his ankle. Garen was shocked. The bang immediately shook the thing at the ankle away. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 578. He looked down and saw that it was Bai Mao's severed hand. The sharp 5 fingers were scratching everywhere. Just now, it grabbed the ankle and left 5 deep scratches on it. The white-haired head not far away opened its big mouth with canine fangs and roared towards Garen. "Outsider! The leader will not let you go. You are dead." "Ha ha ha," Bai Mao laughed. Garen's face slightly condensed. Such tenacious vitality, seeing the other party's ferocious fangs, blood-red eyes, and pale skin, he suddenly thought of a familiar race. "Are you a vampire?" he couldn't help but ask aloud. Bai Mao's laughter suddenly stopped, and he looked at Garen in astonishment. "Aren't you a vampire?" There was a bang. Garen stepped on it and exploded it. Bai Mao's head exploded. There was no flesh and blood inside, it just turned into a ball of black ash and nothing else. Looking around, Garen's chest was rising and falling. He might already know what kind of world he was in. After quickly rummaging through Bai Mao's clothes, he straightened up, quickly left here, circled in the woods, quickly threw away his black raincoat, and then sneaked back home. It was still the same route back through the wall and window, and no one noticed. He turned over and returned to his bedroom, closing the curtains with a swipe. In the darkness, without turning on the light, he raised his foot and inspected the scratched wound. He didn't expect that even though his body was torn apart, the white hair could still move and scratch his skin. This kind of terrifying vitality is simply more powerful than a fighter. The wound was found to have no signs of infection or suppuration. Only then did he feel relieved. Checking the attribute column, he found that killing the vampire did not earn any potential points, which made him a little regretful. After gathering his thoughts, he began to think carefully about Raphael and vampires. There are many signs that the vampire and the gangster at the beach probably monitored and controlled me because of Raphael. So as a person valued by the vampire, Raphael, and the others of the Blood Oath Society, it seems that it will definitely not be a simple organization of ordinary people. Raphael himself must have some kind of power that can rival vampires. This kind of power, combined with the weird phenomena and customs in the town, should be something that only women can do. The power of mastery. Garen suddenly remembered the legend of witches that had been circulating in both the Earth and the secret martial world. Is it a witch? He combined the fragments of information he had collected before and the rituals involving ancestors. It's probably a witch. After coming up with 2 guesses, Galen quickly opened his laptop. Perhaps it's time to really study computer technology in depth. Manufacturing involves a software that collects information. He searched for legends about vampires and witches, and found that there was not much relevant information on the internet, and more of them were novels, movies, TV series, etc. entertainment information. There are also things like myths and legends. He has read these many times and they have no value at all. After connecting to the National Security Agency's website, Galen guessed that perhaps the government department should have records of incidents related to these things. It's just that this kind of confidential thing may not be connected to the internet. It is more likely that it is stored in a computer on the internal LAN. In this kind of purely closed network, no matter how powerful the hacker technology is, it will not work because there are no cables or fiber optics to connect to the outside world. Unlike before, this time Garan suddenly made new discoveries by recollecting various cases across the country, especially murder and disappearance cases. The news reported by the government seems to have been specially screened. The handling of some murder cases seems to be seamless, but in fact something always feels wrong. There are also some confessions and testimonies from bystanders, which seem to be somewhat contradictory. Traces of clues continued to gather in Garen's thoughts. He started getting clearer and more certain. Vampires, and witches are not these two, at least they are similar existences. Closing the laptop, he sat alone in the dark and quietly collected his thoughts. The sound of the door closing as parents came back could be heard faintly outside, as well as the sounds of my little sister and her mother, Therese, talking. Garen sat on the bedside and recalled the fight with Baimao. The process was very easy, although his physical quality has not returned to the level of the totem world, and now it has only reached an average quality of 2 or above. But coupled with the secret martial arts skills, it is more than enough to deal with Baimao. The speed power is about the same as mine, or even a little stronger than mine. And that kind of abnormal vitality and recovery power. Garen rubbed the skin of his hands with both hands. It's just that the skills are too rough, or there are no skills at all, just the tricks used by ordinary people in fighting, and the speed is too fast to the point that even he can't control it. There is nothing scary about such a vampire. But, that kind of vitality. When he thought that his broken hand was still on the ground and could continue to attack his opponent, Garen's understanding of vampires deepened. It's just a little pawn who is following me, but he actually has the same power and speed as me. Sure enough, the advantages of creatures like vampires are too powerful compared to ordinary humans. Garen was not worried about this kind of ordinary vampire. Judging from his status, Baimao was obviously just a low-level vampire. Such a low-level member had such strong strength and speed, as well as vitality and recovery power, so a stronger and more advanced one. Where are the members? There are also legends that vampires are truly immortal creatures. This is very attractive to Garen. Can the vampires really be immortal? Immortality. He was very interested in it. But don't rush now. Take your time. He felt the claws of the secret weapon Hesas that he was slowly progressing. Although he had recovered to this level, he was already very powerful compared to ordinary people, but compared to the vampires, it's obvious that I feel a little powerless. If all vampires were at the same level as Baimao, then it wouldn't matter to him if there were a few more vampires. But if stronger vampires appeared, Garen would still have a certain fear of the unknown powerful existence. After all, according to legend, vampires are terrifying and powerful creatures that are immortal. You must know that even in the world of secret martial arts and the world of totems, there are no truly immortal creatures. At most, there are immortal species, but they can only live for 1,000 years at most, such as the demon phoenix. But vampires are different. If we go by what is recorded in the legend, they may exist not only for thousands of years, but even for tens of thousands of years. This world is far from being as simple as it was at the beginning. What, one less follower? In the North District Church, the strong white man wearing earrings narrowed his eyes and looked at the subordinate who was reporting to him in front of him. At night, there were gangsters covered in blood resting in the church. Most of them were more or less injured, some even had their arms missing, or their legs completely disappeared. There were minor and scary-looking penetrating injuries, and some people had a steel bar on their chests. It felt like the entire church was on the makeup set of a horror movie. Yes, when it was time to change the shift, when I went to find Carl, I found that the guy was missing. I searched everywhere but couldn't find him. He probably left directly. The speaker was a black bald man. At this time, the glasses were wrapped in gauze, and there was faint blood seeping out. It seems that Raphael made a move. She must have discovered something, the white leader said calmly. This guy is much more difficult to deal with than her grandma. Now that this line has been discovered, what are your plans next? The priest came out from the side and looked at the white leader with a frown. That's it for the time being. Our losses are not small, and those damn witches are not much different. It is estimated that both sides will have to rest for a while after this time. The white man hesitated. I always feel that Raphael is planning something. This guy is known as the most powerful witch in Glender in history, and his actions tonight will definitely not be a simple warning. That Blood Oath Society, except for the older generation of witches, has only a few dozen core members. As long as you don't break the ancestral agreement and disrupt the balance wantonly, no matter how powerful she is, there is no need to actively break the rules. The priest shook his head. Besides, there are some vampires passing by outside. What are you going to do with them? What do those outsiders have to do with me? The white man sneered. Just leave it to those witches. I sent someone to warn them before they came in. If you don't follow my Jane's rules, you deserve to die. My heart is weighs on fru clearly yt uncertain sky. In the bar, the DJ's rhythmic drum music was sung along with foreign lyrics. The crowd on the dance floor twisted and danced, some screaming and some applauding loudly under the flashing lights. Two muscular white men were holding a slender girl in their arms on the dance floor, twisting their bodies to the rhythm. A voice from nowhere suddenly echoed in their ears. Their pupils shrank, they exchanged glances, pushed the girl in front of them away, separated from the crowd and walked outside. Ignoring the shouts of inquiry from the girl behind them, the two of them left the bar, turned a few corners, and entered a dead end on the side. At night, the alleys are deserted. Bang! Two strong women suddenly appeared and grabbed them by their collars, pushing them against the wall. You broke the rules. A beautiful girl with blonde hair and a shawl appeared at the entrance of the alley. She stared at the two big men with an indifferent expression. Which? What are the rules? We didn't do anything, one of the big men roared in a low voice, we just got here this morning. With a bang, a woman hit him with a knee, knocking his words back into his stomach. No blood sucking is allowed in public. This is my rule. Shit, another big man interrupted her, humans are just livestock. We can eat whenever we want. If it weren't for you damn women and those traitors from the Ming party. Bang. This time the crash was stronger than before. The big man's eyes turned white, and his words were suddenly knocked back to his stomach. A member of the Camarilla, the blonde girl frowned, kill them, Grandeur does not welcome the Camarilla. She turned and left the alley, a strange female moan and a ferocious crashing roar coming from behind. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 579. After sleeping for a while, when he opened his eyes again, Garen slowly stood up from the pillow. Taking a deep breath, he turned sideways and looked out the window. Sunlight shone faintly through the curtains, and fine dust could be faintly seen floating in the air. He lifted the quilt and looked at the ankle injured yesterday again. There was only a red scratch left on it. There was no trace of what had once been a wound. Today is the weekend, so there is no need to get up in a hurry to go to school. He got dressed in a few moments, walked to the window and opened the curtains. Hey! Raphael was waiting below on his bike as usual. Open the window with a bang. What activities are there today? Garen asked loudly. How about going to the beach again? Have a seafood barbecue, Raphael thought for a moment and answered. That's okay. Garen didn't ask her to come into the house. The few times when Raphael came into the house, he showed such a sense of restraint that the atmosphere became awkward. Come down right away, Garen shouted back. Turning around and walking out of the bedroom, Jason and his sister Vivian were already eating breakfast in the kitchen. His mother went to the study as usual, and his father Emma was sitting in the living room, discussing today's work tasks with his new graduate student. Are you going out again? Jason asked, chewing on a piece of bread. Well, Mayfair is waiting outside. Garen casually took 2 pieces of bread, smeared ketchup on the middle, drank a glass of milk in several gulps, and turned around to walk to the door. "Brother, you haven't brushed your teeth yet," Vivian said loudly. "Don't worry," Garen then remembered, put down the bread, went into the bathroom, and started brushing his teeth quickly. At this time, the toilet door suddenly opened, and a little girl with red hair and a black skirt came out. When she saw him, the little girl was stunned, and then said hello obediently. "Hello, Brother Garen." "Huh? Hello, who are you?" "She is Arissa, who is visiting my house. She is a good friend of mine. She is traveling here this year." My sister Vivian ran over and answered loudly, "Alyssa, this is my brother Garen." This girl was about 10 years old and had the air of a shy young lady. Under Garen's gaze, her face turned a little red. "My name is Arissa, nice to meet you, Brother Garen." "Me too, but I'm sorry, I have friends waiting outside now, so I can only play with you." With my sister. Garen put down the mouthwash bowl and nodded, wiping the foam from his mouth. For some reason, he always felt that this Alicia was a little different from ordinary people, so he couldn't help but take a few more glances. Alyssa came with her sister. The hotel was temporarily full. "I met Alyssa in the square and invited her to stay at my house," Vivian answered seriously. "Her sister lives in Jiling's house next to us. It's great that you can travel and play everywhere at such a young age." Garen touched Alicia's hair and rubbed it gently, which made the little guy's face turn redder. She put her hands behind her back, wringing her fingers. "Then I'll leave first. You can play slowly. Grandeur is a quiet and beautiful place. I wish you all a good time," Garen said with a loud smile and walked towards the door. "Don't worry, I'm taking care of them, they'll be fine," Jason patted his chest. Judging from the dazzling look in his eyes, he probably didn't mean to simply lead the way. Opening the door with a click, Garen saw a tall woman with long red hair standing on the right side of the iron door. She was wearing a tight black windbreaker and carrying a small handbag. She had an oval face and fair skin. She had a cold and inaccessible temperament. She was looking at a place in the distance in a daze. Even when she is in a daze, this beautiful and cold woman exudes an aura that no strangers should enter. Garen walked out of the room wearing a white t-shirt and jeans, and pushed his white motorcycle from the side. The sound seemed to wake up the red-haired woman waiting by the door. She frowned and looked this way. "Hello, I am Arissa's sister. I am here to pick up my sister. Thank you for taking care of me yesterday." The red-haired woman bent slightly and made a standard bow seriously. "You don't have to be so polite." Garen felt that this woman was a little too serious. "This is what it should be," the other party still answered seriously. "This is the first time we meet. My name is Kais Harrow. Please take good care of me." "Nice to meet you." Garen nodded, quickly opened the iron door, and pushed the cart out. "Alicia and my sister are inside. You can just go there by yourself. I didn't lock the door." "That's rude." Ishiro nodded. Garen quickly looked up and down at this woman. She was less than 20 years old. She had a cool temperament and was well educated, but she seemed a bit old-fashioned and serious in Chinese. This makes her seem even more unapproachable. Moreover, the name Aishaluo reminded him of Anshaluo in the world of secret martial arts. The two were only different by one sound, which made Garen feel a sense of intimacy inexplicably. "Glendor is a beautiful and peaceful place. I wish you a pleasant stay." Ishiro nodded seriously. "Thank you." Garen turned around and saw Jason opening the door in a hurry. His face was as red as an eggplant and he didn't dare to look at Ishiro. He suddenly knew the root cause of his being so proactive and excited just now. Pushing the motorcycle, he waved to Raphael in the distance, got on the motorcycle, and the two of them galloped away, one behind the other. Ishiro glanced at the direction Garen and Raphael left, frowning slightly. They didn't come to this town because of tourism. Although the original color people chased them for some unknown reason, it happened to be that this place was undoubtedly a relatively quiet and safe place, and they could definitely live here with their sister for 2 more years. Time. She thought of this and sighed softly. Arisha is still so young and has to bear such pressure. She lives a life of escape every day, hoping that the life here can last for a while. The best people will never be able to find them. They have given up hope for the hatred they once had. Revenge, her only wish now is to live an ordinary life and raise her sister. 2 white motorcycles were speeding back and forth through the woods. The whining sound of the engine passed by, bringing up a large amount of fallen leaves, soil and gravel from time to time. Garin wore a black helmet and followed Raphael closely, but his mind was thinking about the strange feeling when he saw the 2 sisters Arissa and Ishiro just now. The feeling was like some kind of indescribable taste. It was weird and rich, but I couldn't remember it for a while. What are you thinking? Raphael's voice came from the side. At some point, she had slowed down and kept pace with Garin. It's nothing, I just had a bad dream last night and I haven't gotten over it yet. Garin didn't dare to say that he was thinking about another woman. Raphael was very kind to him, but in this regard he was very stingy. Maybe you will get angry because of it accidentally. This unnecessary contradiction naturally needs to be avoided. Are you thinking about other women? Raphael asked suspiciously. Of course not. Isn't it enough for me to have you? Garin smiled. Snort. Raphael accelerated and rushed to the front. Interrupted by her, Garin seemed to vaguely grasp the inexplicable feeling just now. Maybe he knows what that feels like. The feeling I had when I saw Sister Alicia was exactly the same as the feeling I had when I saw the history of the Totem World planet. Although I didn't see any special screen content, the awkward and special feeling was exactly the same as when I saw the history of the planet outside the Totem planet. This feeling. He lowered his head and muttered. Although his eyes were focused on the road ahead, his mind couldn't help but return to the 2 sisters of Alicia. It should come from the soul seed. He finally identified the source of the feeling. The soul seed is hidden deep in the soul, but at this time it is constantly releasing a strange and inexplicable fluctuation, affecting his state of mind. Somewhere in the air, he felt that many interesting things might happen around Sister Alicia. 2 motorcycles, one in front and one in the rear, braked and stopped on the road at the edge of the beach, then suddenly turned sideways. The 2 got out of the car and took off their helmets. Why have you been so absent-minded since just now? Are you attracted to that girl just now? Raphael stood in front of Garin angrily with his hands on his hips. How is that possible? Garin was speechless. I just had a dream last night. Don't lie to me, your eyes are obviously thinking about that woman, Raphael interrupted him. Okay. I admit it, I just felt that the woman was weird, and there was something abnormal about her, Garin finally admitted. I'm just an ordinary tourist, what's wrong with that? You're my man, don't even think about messing around with women. Otherwise, Raphael raised his fist and shook it in demonstration. His cute look made Garin can't help but feel a little funny. He couldn't help but reach out and pinch her angry face. The 2 immediately started fighting with each other and chased each other on the beach for a long time. They accidentally fell into the sea and got wet all over. Back at the motorcycle, while Garin was changing clothes, he sent a blank text message on his mobile phone to the number the vampire told him yesterday. Then delete the record and quickly put your phone away. He looked at Raphael next to him, who had just changed into his swimsuit. What do you want to eat? I'll catch it for you. I may have something to do and have to go back early later. Can't you have fun on the weekend? Raphael's white skin glowed with a dazzling white halo in the sun, and she still hadn't been tanned by the sun after such a long time. There is indeed something going on. You know, my parents are busy with their own affairs all day long. When we are a little older, they don't care about us much. I am mainly responsible for everything. Garin shrugged. That's right, Raphael leaned over. She was slightly shorter than Garen, and she slightly raised her face to look at Garen's face. If you have any trouble, please tell me and don't bear it alone, you know. Of course, I won't forget that I have a strong female girlfriend. Garen gently held her waist. Raphael immediately smiled coquettishly and spun away from his arms. Okay, since you have something to do, when will you go back? You can play here for 2 hours. Garen retracted his hand with some regret. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 580. That's enough. Raphael held Garen's hand and liked to see his helpless expression. Speaking of which, I have a lot of things going on here recently. All kinds of troubles seem to have piled up all at once. I am so busy that I am so busy. If it weren't for the sisters who came back from college to help me, I would have really lost my life this time. There's no time left. It seems like a lot of outsiders have come to town recently. Yeah, the hotels are all full, and many tourists can only stay in everyone's homes in the town, but it can make up some income and give everyone some extra money. Raphael nodded. I guess the incident last time was exposed. What's going on? Garen didn't pay attention. It's the largest bear, Mika bear. It is said to be the largest bear in the world. It has refreshed the original record of brown bears and is about 1/3 larger than brown bears on average. Raphael replied in a low voice, many tourists are. I came here to study and observe Mika bears, but the number of Mika bears is very small. Even though I have lived here since I was a child, I have only seen them twice. Is it really big? Garen became interested. It's very big. It stands nearly 4 meters tall, but it has a very gentle temperament and usually doesn't attack people. Raphael explained carefully, the 2 times I saw it were when it was fishing. Although he was talking about a ferocious beast, there was no trace of fear in Raphael's eyes. Garen noticed this and changed the subject. By the way, I really like the buck badge you gave me last time. Can you take me to see other similar old objects? This needs my grandma's consent. Raphael hesitated. I'm just taking a look and appreciating it. You know I'm very interested in antiques. Garen pleaded seriously. Raphael did know about Galen's obsession with antiques. It could be said that his knowledge in antiques was comparable to that of professional experts, at least comparable to those appraisal experts on TV. This is what she felt. The more she understood Garen's strengths and excellence, the more she fell in love with this extremely perfect and excellent man. Although she is known as the strongest witch in Glendor in history, has the most powerful ancient power talent, and commands all the witch powers in more than 10 surrounding towns, but except for this aspect, she is far inferior to Garen in other aspects. All-rounder. I'll go back and ask Grandma. You know, these antiques are the treasures of the older generation. They cherish and care for them. I have no right to decide on things that are not mine. I understand. Garen nodded. His potential points had not improved at all for so many years. Recently, his secret martial arts has fallen into a sluggish state. Without potential points, he can only use time to survive. The progress is extremely slow, and it will probably take some time before he can fully regain his strength. Potential points can greatly shorten the accumulation time, which is also his biggest advantage and must be utilized as soon as possible. Ever since he killed a vampire head-on and tested his current strength, Garen had a vague sense of urgency and planned to improve and restore his strength as soon as possible. Otherwise, if one day he encounters a more powerful vampire and faces an unknown force, he really doesn't know how to deal with it. With this little strength right now, he is undoubtedly seeking death. Realm and skills can indeed make up for part of the strength, but this is a situation where the gap is not too big. If the gap is too big, it will be really troublesome. In addition, he is also very interested in whether the vampires can really live forever. I will give you an answer the day after tomorrow at the latest. As you know, my grandma is a very strict person. I will try my best to request when she is in a good mood. Raphael said apologetically. Thank you. Garen gently kissed her right cheek and took her into his arms again. He had somewhat complicated feelings about Raphael. He naturally accepted her as a person on the surface of this world, but in his heart he really hid that galleon. But he treated it as just a game. Maybe Raphael also felt this, which was why he was still reluctant to completely give her first time to him. Garen has experienced two worlds, and he has actually hidden his feelings deeply in his heart. Compared to Raphael's terrifying age, he will not completely accept her easily. He had already planned that after Raphael's grandma refused, he would secretly use a slightly more troublesome method himself, which might yield some results. After chatting on the beach for a while, they caught some seashells and cooked them over a fire. When the two saw that the time was almost up, Garen got up and rode his bike to say goodbye to Raphael. Raphael watched Garen leave, standing on the beach arranging his long hair that was blown by the wind. A girl in gray clothes walked out from the rocks not far away and stood beside her. Looking at her leader's obsessed expression, the girl shook her head slightly helplessly. In the eyes of outsiders, whether in the eyes of vampires or witches, the leader is the most arrogant, cold, powerful, and beautiful witch. She has emerged since junior high school, and now has unified the entire Alice Forest area witches, and is respectfully called the witch by witches in other areas. The will of the sun. It means that the will as powerful and dazzling as the sun cannot be resisted and can only be obeyed. Especially after the recent meeting with Moonlight Dark, the leader of witches in the northern United States, Raphael was assumed to be the third most powerful witch in the United States. Her terrifying talent and strong character left a deep impression on the vampires and witches from other countries who witnessed her at that time. But such a great forest witch king is so obsessed with an ordinary boy. What's wrong? Raphael glanced at his right-hand sister. It's nothing, I'm just a little envious of the pure relationship between you and Garen, the girl replied in a low voice. Maybe I should be like you, hide my identity, and find a good boy who doesn't get close to me because of his status. Such feelings should be pure, right? Raphael suddenly smiled slightly, and there was a hint of tenderness in his smile that he had never shown in front of outsiders. Sister, can we really stay here and live for a while? Elisa opened her eyes and looked at Ishiro excitedly. The two sisters walked side by side behind the square, with Jason and his sister Vivian leading the way, and they did not hear their words. Ishiro looked around carefully. This is a place beyond the reach of the original color. They have not discovered our whereabouts. If we are well hidden, we can live here for a longer time. Great, Alicia's little face couldn't help but jump up and down with joy. Don't worry, as long as we arrange things well, maybe they won't be able to find us in their lifetime. Ishiro stroked her sister's hair lovingly. Primary Colors, Asia's strongest shadow organization, is inextricably linked to the government. It also has tentacles extending into the dark world of Asia. Its leader, Ribastancoro, is the chairman of the board of directors of the third-ranked financial group in the world. He has countless people under his command. Banks, energy companies, arms sales, shady dealings. The entire primary color is a huge, deformed monster, military, political, and commercial, gray, and dark, with huge and powerful influence in all fields. The sisters were originally just a pair of ordinary sisters in Europe. They were born rich and well off. However, because their genes conformed to the conditions of the primary color-enhanced human experiment, their family was ruined. During the experiment, they accidentally got a chance to escape. They fled all the way and finally came to Grandeur. Small town. Recalling the thrilling assassinations and kidnappings of those elite mercenaries sent by Primary Color, Ishiro felt a slight pain in his heart and gently reached out to touch the faded scar on the right side of his sister's neck. No one could have imagined that this scar was originally a horrific knife wound that almost severed the trachea. If it weren't for the strong resilience gained from the experiment, my sister Arissa might never have woken up that time. Originally, she had planned to take revenge, but for the terrifying giant monsters like the original colors that nearly ruled the entire Asia, they were only hunted by the mercenaries and assassins at the bottom, and there were also hidden troops at the upper levels. It was rumored that there were still people inside the group. A terrifying existence and a killing machine that is too powerful to be human. The entire group rules the entire Asian underground world, and its internal power revealed to the two sisters is not even the tip of the iceberg. Aishiro no longer wants to let his sister suffer anymore. She has already encountered many near-death experiences at such a young age. If she wanted revenge, she would think of the layers of terrifying opponents and enemies, the all-pervasive power of primary color, and the terrifying man she once saw in the laboratory, Rebus Stanquillo. He also has a nickname, Titan. The man's terrifying and powerful aura made them, as successful subjects of the experiment, tremble unconsciously. That kind of terrifying aura, as if you can't see the edge of the abyss of the sea, and you can't see the bottom. It's like you are just a baby facing an extremely ferocious lion. Forget about revenge or anything like that. As long as Alicia is happy, Aishiro gently pushed her sisters back and asked her to run forward and walk with little Vivian. The two little guys were chattering and laughing. Jason peeked at himself from time to time, which made Aishiro feel a little funny. This family, who lived in the small town of Glendo and had nothing to do with the world, left a very deep impression on her. After chatting casually with Jason for a while, most of the information about this family was poured out by Jason. My parents are both standard intellectuals and very friendly to people, but they spend too much time on work. The children are very sensible. The eldest son Jason is muscular, carefree, and likes boxing. He is a very simple high school boy. The second son, Garen, is mature and steady, and seems to have a higher status in the family than Jason. He is handsome, has a quiet temperament, and likes the violin. He is a popular figure in the school. It is said that some girls have dueled for him. The third daughter, Vivian, is still young, innocent, and lively, and sometimes quirky. She likes brother Galen the most and also likes to tease brother Jason. The warm atmosphere of this family made Aishiro secretly envious, and Alicia was completely immersed in it. She and Vivian became best friends in a short period of time, and each of them had half of all the good things. It was like a sister like her. All slightly jealous. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 581. Do you know why the snail crawls so slowly? Jason in front suddenly turned around and asked Aishiro. Aishiro was slightly startled and shook his head. Have no idea. Because snails are the smallest cows. Ha 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 ha, Jason laughed. Aishiro looked at him speechlessly, and the two little guys next to him also looked at him speechlessly. He was the only one among the four who laughed. Ha ha ha, ha ha, don't you think it's funny? Jason finally stopped laughing. Looking at the speechless expressions of the three people around him, he seemed to finally realize how cold his joke was. Okay, let me change the joke. The motorcycle slowly drove into the yard of his home. Galen pushed the motorcycle and found that no one else was there. There was no one at home, and it goes without saying that Tries and Emma must have been working on their own research projects. After putting the car away, he opened the door and entered the small building, put on his shoes, and closed the door behind his back. For some reason, he had been lingering in his mind about the strange reaction of Sister Alicia. The soul seed would not react for no reason. That familiar feeling is like the strange feeling you get when you see the history of the planet in the totem world. He quickly returned to his room, took out his laptop, opened it, and connected to the internet. After browsing the recent news related to Glendo Town, the first thing that appeared was Mika Bear, the largest bear in the world. Now it has become the hottest topic in this forest, not only in Glendo Town, but also in surrounding areas. There are a lot of tourists coming to many small towns in the distance. Apart from this news, another wild wolf attacked humans, causing 1 death and 1 injury. There is no other content to be seen. Closing the computer, Garen fell into thought. Snapped. Suddenly, an extremely subtle crisp sound came from downstairs. Others might just think of this crisp sound as the exploding wood of a wooden house. But Garen suddenly came back to his senses, stood up quietly, walked to the door and pulled it gently. The wooden door was opened silently without making any sound. He slowly poked his head out from the guardrail of the second-floor stairs and looked down. Below, a bald man in black leather clothes was walking calmly and silently in the room. He looked left and right, as if he was searching for something. There is a white phoenix pattern tattooed on the chest of his black leather jacket. A strong man has a white phoenix pattern on his clothes, which does look a bit weird. But this man didn't care at all. His face was dull and his skin had no color. He looked like he was wearing a mask. Garen watched him silently as he walked around on the first floor. He did not go to any other room. The bald man walked straight towards his sister Vivian's bedroom. He reached out and touched the door lightly, and suddenly he looked up. The guardrail on the second floor was empty, without any sign of anyone. The bald man frowned, lowered his head and reached out to push away Vivian's bedroom. But he didn't go in, he just stuck his head at the door and smelled it. "There is no smell of Ishiro," he suddenly whispered, his voice was a low Asian Koran. Garen once spent half a year learning several major languages commonly used in the world, and now he could fully understand the meaning of his words. Only then did he notice that the bald man was wearing a black device like a headset microphone on the side of his face, close to his cheek. "We found residue here, it must be her." An extremely thin female voice came from the headset. "It seems that I'm going out to play temporarily. This mission is quite easy," the bald head said with a low smile. "Don't be careless. There are so many D-class people in front of you who have failed." "It won't be for nothing," the woman whispered. "Don't worry, we are not those D-class trash." Bald head smiled lazily. He quickly closed the door, and then followed the footsteps that came in step by step, without missing a beat. At the same time, he took out a long pole in his hand, and a round wiping plate full of plush popped out from the end, and wiped the footprints. He walked back. "Erase them all one by one." Soon, the bald head erased all traces, and at the same time gently closed the door, turned around and left. From the beginning to the end, he had no intention of going up to the second floor. He obviously knew that there was someone on the second floor. After the door closed gently, Garen's figure appeared behind the door. Through the peephole, he looked at the bald man's leaving figure, and finally a slight smile appeared on his face. The breath of potential. He gently touched the place where the bald head had touched with his hand, and the familiar smell made his originally bad mood improve. That bald head must be from some organization. He came specifically to find Sister Alicia. He still has residual potential in his body. It seems that there should be a lot of things with potential in this world. This is good news. Garen smiled slightly. Got up. He suddenly remembered where the strange feeling in Sister Alicia came from. It was a similar feeling to the original Baker Stone Eyes and Goth. It is a special induction of the soul, belonging to some indescribable reason. If I have to describe it in detail, then this feeling is the general trend. Like Baker Stone Eyes and Gerda, the Alexis sisters should also be the ones who influence the general trend. They are the first dominoes in the beginning. To be more precise, they should be said to be the source of change and development in the world, just like the first small dominoes in the butterfly effect. Like a butterfly, every time it flaps its wings, it will form a weak influence. Eventually, these influences will gather together and be amplified layer by layer, turning into an unparalleled huge storm. Galen took out his phone, checked the time, and quickly sent a text message to Raphael. There was a reply soon. "We're already home. Don't worry, I'll take care of myself." "That's good." Garen was not willing to cause trouble and losses to Raphael because of himself, so although he did exactly what the vampire hypnotized him to do, his return time was advanced a lot. Gently opening the door, Garen looked around and found no one protecting his Raphael, nor any trace of the bald head. He sniffed his nose, walked out of the yard easily, and walked toward the fork off the road on the left. No one paid attention to the actions of a teenage child. At noon, most people went home to eat. There were very few cars on the road and almost no passers-by. Only the sounds of voices could be heard from time to time in the houses. The sun was scorching hot, making the ground sweltering. Garen was walking on the green grass. The forest where Grandeur was located was different from other forests in other places. The grass here was particularly high. The grass grew up to the calf, and only the upper part of the knee could be exposed for walking. Most people would pay attention to poisonous snakes and insects in the grass when walking, but Garen didn't care at all. He strode apart from the grass and followed the bald head's breath. Slowly, the surrounding trees began to become denser, from sparse to continuous, forming a large shade that blocked the sun. Soon, two figures in black leather clothes could be faintly seen in the grass between the trees in front. One of them was clearly the bald man who had just left, and the other was a dark-haired woman with a hot figure. "You're still wearing black leather clothes on such a hot day. Is there something wrong with your brain?" Garen walked over with a smile. "Who?" the bald man yelled loudly and looked over. Under the watchful eyes of the two men, Garen slowly walked out of the grass and stepped on a few arched tree roots protruding from the ground. "You two just came to my house as guests, how come you don't recognize the host so quickly?" He put his hands in his trouser pockets and smiled easily. The bald man had a ghostly expression on his face and glanced at the woman next to him in confusion. The woman also shook her head at him, saying that she didn't know what was going on. "Who are you?" His hand quietly touched the silenced pistol on his waist. "What organization are you two from? Why are you sneaking into my house and running around?" Garen ignored the other party's little movements and suddenly changed the language. The fluent Asian Quran made the other party's pupils shrink slightly. "Do it." The bald head suddenly rolled to the left, and a black pistol appeared in his hand, and 3 shots were fired instantly. Then, without looking at the result, he stood up and hid behind a big tree. The woman also rolled to the right and made the same movement. The 6 bullets instantly covered all the directions of Garen's dodge. They were extremely accurate. Even if he didn't move, 2 bullets were shot at his eyebrows and heart. But the moment before the 2 men opened fire, Galen arched his body and jumped forward, rushing into the grass like a poisonous snake and pounced towards the bald head. All 6 bullets hit the grass behind him, and none of them hit. He grabbed his right arm forward. Hiss. The arms actually bent like noodles, bypassing the wide tree trunk, and snapped the bald head that was about to dodge onto the tree. The sharp claws and nails were sharp and pitch black, and they were like metal claws, slamming the bald head's neck upside down on the tree trunk. While the woman on the other side looked like she had seen a ghost, Garen stood in front of the bald man with a soft smile on his face. "Can you answer my question now?" Of course, the bald man swallowed and raised his hand to signal the woman to put down the pistol. His face was pale, his heart was beating wildly, and he was caught strangely as soon as they met each other. Looking at the other party's dark and sharp nails, he knew that he might have kicked the steel plate this time. "What do you want to ask, Your Excellency?" "We won't dare to hide it at all," he said cheerfully without any resistance. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" "We are peripheral members of the Asian White Phoenix, temporary mercenaries. We are here to take over the task of capturing the escaped experimental subjects." "Asian White Phoenix? What kind of organization is this?" "It is one of the military branches affiliated with the Original Color. You can also check the information on the Original Color group from the internet." Baldhead replied quickly. "Then what does experimental subject mean?" "I don't know. We are just the outermost mercenaries. The past history of the mission target is none of our business. As you know, sometimes knowing too much will make you lose your life. Baldhead answered in a bachelor's manner. The experimental subjects are sisters Alicia. Yes. In addition, our main goal is to capture alive. We will only attack if we cannot capture alive. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 582. Garen glanced at the woman on the side. They were probably a couple. The woman stared nervously at the black claws on the bald head's neck, not daring to make any move. These two people are just well-trained elite mercenaries. They are indeed very strong in the use of firearms and their reactions are very quick, but compared with real fighters, they are vulnerable. Not to mention the inhuman beings in this town. These are just two ordinary people. As Baldhead himself said, they are just the outermost mercenaries. But Galleon's purpose is naturally not that simple. He carefully searched the pockets of the bald head's clothes and quickly pulled out a black wooden cross pendant from his chest. The moment he got the cross, a trace of cool breath slowly flowed into Garen's arm, making his eyes light up slightly. Where did you get this? There was a pained expression on his bald face. This is a souvenir given to me by a friend of mine, a very good friend. He asked me to carry it with me everywhere and never leave it behind. It is indeed a very good souvenir. Garen showed satisfaction. This cross actually contains potential. It is not a one-time thing, but a long-lasting one. Moreover, the surface of the cross seems to be covered with a layer of invisible power, which may explode and overflow at any time. Garen guessed that this might be a protective treasure specially designed to deal with some kind of extraordinary power. Once it encounters an enemy with extraordinary means, this thing can immediately explode with power to protect the bald head. The bald friend was obviously worried that he would get into trouble, so he gave him the pendant. It seems that your friends are very good. Garen pulled off the pendant, and his original intention to kill the two people suddenly faded away. He began to think about any way to control these two people for his own use. After all, his current information channels are too few, almost none. If he has two mercenaries with different identities as tentacles, he will understand and penetrate the reality of this world faster. There are many ways to control the enemy, but among the unknown methods in this world, it is difficult to have a method that can guarantee that it will not be cracked. There are vampires, possibly witches, and even other supernatural powers in this world. It seems ordinary and simple, but in fact the water inside is very deep. After searching through the top secret weapons in his memory, Garen finally chose a more secret method. Pure punishment is only the lowest level of control. The best key is to make the other party reluctant to betray. Smiling meaningfully at the bald head, Garen let go of his neck. Thank you both very much for your candid confession. As you can see, the water in this town is not something you can get involved in. From the conversation just now, I really appreciate the sincere feelings between you. He paused. Since you are mercenaries, I have a mission here. I wonder if you are willing to take it? You won't kill us, although the bald man asked, his expression became obviously relaxed. I'm not someone who is easy to kill, why should I kill you? Garen spread his hands. If you help me complete my mission here, I can consider taking you two as disciples and teach them the powerful skills I just had. Fighting skills. The bald man's eyes lit up instantly, and not only him, but also the black-haired woman next to him swallowed unconsciously. Only those who are mixed in the world of mercenaries on the edge of life and death know what kind of terrifying effect a powerful fighting skill can have in missions and fights. As for the terrifying skills of the boy in front of me just now, who completely ignores firearms, this kind of fighting technique is simply the most powerful killing technique. Having such an opportunity to learn this technique is undoubtedly difficult for the couple. Say no to the temptation. Are you telling the truth? Are you really willing to accept us as your disciples and teach us powerful fighting skills? The bald head's voice was trembling. Although the person standing in front of him was just an ordinary teenage boy, he had absolutely no intention of looking down on his age. The woman next to her also looked excited. She opened her mouth to speak, but she still didn't make a sound. She still cast her eyes on the bald head, letting him take the initiative. Of course it's true, Garen smiled. He has not only dozens of fighting skills, but hundreds of them. Not to mention that as a master of human body structure and a top fighter, he has a lot of knowledge about human body fighting skills. Knowing that he can create a simple killing technique at any time. What is a simple skill to him is undoubtedly a top-notch treasure to others. So, what is your mission? Baldhead asked carefully. With such a generous reward, naturally the tasks that need to be completed must be quite troublesome. Actually, it's very simple. Garen raised the cross in his hand. I'm very interested in old antiques, especially this kind. I need you to find out the origin of this thing and whether there are other things of the same type. It would be even better if we could find it. Under the completely puzzled gazes of the two men, he threw the cross. Based on a simple appraisal, this thing should be at least 80 years old. You can consider this. If you look for this cross, maybe I can find a way. The bald man's eyes were bright. Are you sure? Garen was delighted. Sure, 100%, Baldhead replied firmly. I have seen information about this kind of thing in the group. There are not a lot of these crosses, and the price is not very expensive. They are all put up for auction by some wearers. Garen patted him vigorously on the shoulder. As a reward for the mission, I will teach you something in advance so that you can feel whether the mission is worth it or not. The eyes of the two bald men became more and more eager. 2 hours later, Garen slowly left the deserted forest and returned to the road, still walking slowly toward home with his hands in his pockets. The cross was placed in his trouser pocket, held tightly by his right hand. A trace of cold breath continued to penetrate into his palms, flow down his forearms, to his shoulders, and then to his brain. Look at the changes in the attribute bar, and then feel the total amount of breath in the cross. Galen estimated that this cross could provide her with at least 3 attribute points, which was 300% of her potential. This was the lowest estimate. After not having any potential value for so long, Galen suddenly had such an extra income, which made Garen feel very good. He immediately had a good impression of the Alicia sisters. As soon as the two sisters arrived, he caught the person who sent the potential points. Maybe that White Phoenix original color person would come again a few times, and his potential points would increase more and more. Thinking back to the time when the bald couple were learning secret skills. The corners of Garen's mouth curled up slightly. These were the 2 tentacles he released. From today on, he was finally no longer as ignorant of the dark world outside as before. What the bald couple learned was not a complete secret martial art. Without the promotion of secret martial arts, it would naturally not be a powerful secret method. It is a secret technique recreated by Garen. As the name suggests, it is something between a secret technique and a technique. The threshold is very low and anyone can learn, but it will cause a certain degree of damage to the human body. It is a fighting technique that enhances strength at the expense of self-mutilation. Although it can only improve strength in a short period of time, for the bald couple, this is undoubtedly an extremely precious path. The secret technique created by Garen was named projection by him. It is a shooting auxiliary secret technique specially developed for 2 people. It can double the vision, hearing, and nerve response within half an hour after stimulating specific acupoints and meridians. For the 2 couples, this is equivalent to a desperate counterattack in a short period of time. And this is the first level of projection, followed by the second, third, and even 6th levels. The cost of each level of secret method is the same, or even less, and the improvement obtained will become stronger and bigger. The final sixth layer can even improve vision, hearing, and nerve response by a full 6 times. This made the two couples extremely fascinated. With the help of Garen, they quickly mastered the simplest secret method of the first level. After feeling that powerful and perfect state, the two of them were completely dedicated to working for Garen. Although this secret method has serious side effects, each time it is used, it will cause inevitable internal damage to one's overall constitution. The cost of this damage is very secret. After each use of the secret method, at least 3 months of rest are required. Otherwise, using it twice in a short period of time will cause a certain degree of permanent damage, such as blindness, such as permanent loss of hearing. The biggest difference between secret skills and secret methods is here. Secret skills require a huge cost of self-harm to be used, and they cannot be used continuously in a short period of time. The secret method has almost no major side effects and can be used continuously quickly, just like Palash's 99 sperm hole secret method, which created his terrifying reputation of being invincible. The reason why the secret technique of projection is so powerful is that when Garen guided the two of them to learn, he actually used a little of his own courage. Using his courage as a guide, he stimulated a certain degree of alienation in the two people's bodies, and finally they could develop powerful secret techniques of projection. What the two of them don't know is that if they want to continue to practice and strengthen this secret skill, they must find Garen at each level of promotion and guide them to activate the alienation again. In other words, their future path to becoming stronger is actually in Garen's hands. And the secret technique also has the greatest effect. That means you can only advance, but you can't abandon it. Once you learn a secret skill, it is like you have entered a dead end and you can only practice continuously. If you cannot reach the highest level and your cultivation stagnates for a period of time, the practitioner will continue to suffer severe pain and his body will weaken rapidly, until death. Regarding this weakness, Garen is also planning to modify and improve it. After all, the secret technique is just a technique he created in a hurry and needs time to correct. I went home and sorted out the relevant memories. It was almost dinner time, and my parents came back. Sister Alicia, who had been out for fun, came to the house for dinner at the warm invitation of Jason and Vivian. Galen sent Raphael a text message. The reply was that everything was fine, and obviously the other party's conspiracy did not succeed. Now that the two tentacles were released, they just had to wait for them to be recovered, and he had harvested the first batch of potential points in the world. Garen was in a good mood, and his eyes became more pleasing to the eyes when he looked at the Alicia sisters. If all goes well, maybe we can find the rest of the crosses and use them to improve our physical fitness. Everything will be on the right track. With the rapid improvement of strength, there will also be a chance to slowly find out the secrets inside the vampire. Anyway, it's still early, he is only a junior high school student and has just entered high school, so he is still young. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 583. Time flies by. There are no surprises or big changes in the routine life. Raphael's grandmother finally rejected Garen's request, which made Raphael very sorry, and sent him a lot of messy old things as compensation. High school life is no different from junior high school, except that the academic work is a little heavier, but for Garen, these are parts that can be ignored completely. After he absorbed the Blackwood Cross, because his mental age was completely different from other students, he was alone most of the time without Raphael's company. Go to the piano room to practice alone and find a place where no one is around to review your old fighting skills. He retrained his fighting skills in a slow way. On the surface, it looked like an ordinary external skill to maintain health. But in fact, as long as he was willing, in an instant, this kind of movement of muscles and bones could explode into terrifying force. Lethality. Garen didn't have many friends, except for Raphael. Unlike Raphael, she had many friends, or subordinates. In fact, the two of them have one thing in common, which is something that has always made them slightly happy about their relationship, and that is loneliness. Even though the two are lovers, even the other party has never really revealed all their secrets to the other party. It's the same whether it's Galen or Raphael. But just like that, both of them felt that the distance between them was much closer than other people. The past few years have been uneventful, with nothing major happening in the town. Except for a Mika bear being invited to leave by the National Zoo, everything has been peaceful. In the afternoon, the warm air, the reddish sunny ground, and the scattered yellow leaves. Outside the piano room behind the school, a slender young boy is standing on the podium of the music classroom, gently playing a melodious melody. It is soft and peaceful, as if a person is walking quietly in the quiet boundless fields. The moonlight at night falls down and shines on the body. Along with the cool evening wind, there is silence in the heart. The boy has white and delicate crystal skin, a beautiful androgynous face, and short golden hair that is as bright as fringes. A black shirt and slim-fitting black trousers perfectly set off his well-proportioned figure. On the side of the piano room are rows of large trees of unknown species. Under the shade of the trees, a girl with blonde shawl hair sits sideways on the windowsill, quietly listening to the music of the boy inside. The white dress on her body was divided into gold and white by the sunlight. "Is it Michael Sid's Hope?" the girl asked casually after the silence of the piano ended. "You guessed it right again." Galen put down the violin and began to take care of it carefully. This violin was specially purchased by his mother for him. It was hired by an old friend of hers and cost 200,000 Galen. If it were replaced by on Earth, that is equivalent to a purchasing power of more than 200,000 US. Although the greatest value of this piano is its collection. No need to guess, I've heard it so many times. Raphael inserted his fingers into his hair and combed it down. "Which school are you going to? Your SIT score is above 2,300. Any school should be fine, right?" Garen walked to the windowsill and pressed his hands on the edge of the window lattice. "It's not bad. I'm going to Garyville. My family also supports me. I can't do it anymore." Raphael curled the ends of his blonde hair with his fingers. "I took the test 5 times, and the highest score was only 2,000. I may not be able to keep up with you. My family suggested that I choose a state university. Study in this state." Garen also fell silent. After all, he had been with Raphael for so long, so he had feelings for her after all. "I still remember when Raphael arranged candles in a heart shape for him, causing the students in the school to boo loudly at night. Over the years, I have come to pick him up almost every morning. Occasionally, I will continue to send him different flowers every day for a period of time, making up 99 flowers. This is a very romantic thing for anyone. Raphael is undoubtedly passionate. She may want someone to really come into her heart and become a haven for her to relax her soul. Gollyville is the best school in the United States. That's fine. Your family shouldn't have come to this remote town in the first place." Raphael was a little disinterested. "I should come back." Garen laughed. "My family won't move away. What are you worried about? The outside world is very exciting." Raphael was obviously a little emotional. "Don't you think it would sound very handsome if you went out and told people that your boyfriend is a top student in Gollyville?" Galen put his arm around her shoulders. "Who knows if you would like ordinary girls from the countryside if you go there?" Raphael asked. In fact, after learning about the background of Galen's family, she understood that the final gap between the two parties was too big. On the surface, his father is a university professor, and his mother is a psychologist, both of whom are well known in the world. Galen himself is talented, beautiful, proficient in violin skills, and has far-reaching cultural qualities. Beyond the students in the town, they are not on the same level at all. This was also the main reason why she fell in love with Garen at first sight. And she, aside from her identity as a witch, is actually just an ordinary country girl, just a little prettier and a little wilder. Compared with those charming city girls who know how to dress themselves up, the gap is too obvious. Even if she revealed her identity as a witch, it would be useless, and it might even scare Garen even more, which would have the opposite effect. The first love of my youth may really be over. Raphael thought so, looking up into Garen's eyes. You'll remember me, right? Don't make it look like a romance drama about life and death. Garen tugged at her cheek. It's not like I'm acting in a TV series. I don't remember anything. It's not like I'm going to run away and disappear. Gollyville University is actually equivalent to the top universities in Gallian Earth, such as Harvard and Yale. It is one of the best schools in the United States in this world. The top 3 in the world rankings are constantly rotating among these schools. In fact, this kind of school not only looks at SIT scores, but also examines other aspects. The qualifications of Garen's parents are also an important admission factor for him. SIT is like the SAT and ACT that are used by American universities on Earth. It is divided into 1, 2, and 2 assessments, and comprehensive scores are given. All American universities look at this score as their admissions criteria. You can apply to take the test multiple times, or you can take the test only once if you are satisfied with your score. After Galen figured out these relationships, he decisively applied for registration and took the exam a little early. As a result, he easily scored 2,345 points. This was because he deliberately missed some points. The total score is only 2,400. Raphael also signed up with him. Unfortunately, perhaps because his studies were not focused on this, but on learning about witches, his results were not very satisfactory. The highest score was only 2,000 points. No one will talk to me after you leave. Raphael in turn grabbed Garen's face, but he dodged it and immediately pursued her relentlessly. You will make new friends when you go to a new school. Garen smiled and said, you think so much at a young age, be careful about going bald in the future. You're the one who's bald. Raphael got angry and went to pull Garen's hair, but he dodged him again. The two of them were going back and forth through the windowsill. Toot. Toot. Raphael's cell phone rang, just a beeping sound, no other music. She paused. I'll deal with you next time, she said harshly, took out her mobile phone, turned around and walked to a farther place to answer the call. Galen leaned alone in front of the windowsill, watching her wave to him after answering the phone. I'm going back first, I have something to deal with. Okay, go ahead. I'm going back too, Garen nodded. Watching Raphael leave with a roar on his motorcycle, Garen smiled. He did not tell Raphael that he would take a car to Fenan City to catch the train tonight. He could also understand the situation in this mysterious town. It's almost clear. A town where witches and vampires rule together. The witches seem to be guarding something here, and the vampires seem to have a certain degree of tacit understanding with the witches, and are very wary of outsiders. Together, the two maintain a seemingly fragile, but actually solid, tacit understanding. The small town of Glender may not be famous in the ears of ordinary people, but in the world of witches and vampires, it should be a place of great reputation. In the past few years, Garen has occasionally captured foreign vampires and tortured them for information, but he still knows these basic common sense. The vampires in this world have a strict hierarchy, and this hierarchy is based on control. High-level vampires have absolute control over lower-level vampires unless special means are used to consciously avoid it. The hierarchy of high-level vampire galleons is not very clear, but the division of general vampires is quite clear. The first, Death Apostle, is the highest level known to Garen. The second is the upper vampire, the third is the middle, then the lower vampire, and finally the vampire. Vampires are just ordinary cannon fodder that even vampires look down on. They are not recognized as vampires at all. No matter what means, they can't avoid the fate of being controlled by their superior vampires. To put it simply, as long as a vampire encounters a real vampire, he can only be controlled by the opponent unconditionally. However, although vampires are just cannon fodder for the vampires, they have hypnotic control over ordinary humans. They call this ability charm humans. Dead apostles, upper vampires, middle vampires, lower vampires, vampires. This is the simple information Garen learned from ordinary vampires. Lower vampires can freely transform into vampires, mid-level vampires can transform into lower vampires, and so on. Dead apostles can transform into upper vampires. This is where absolute status comes from. But unlike the vampires on Earth, the vampires here, even the lowest vampires, are not afraid of the sun, they only fear silverware. The division of witches is actually based on vampires. Death apostle level witch, high level witch, middle level witch, low level witch, spiritual enlightener. This division is based on strength assessment. Witch Garen has never seen them take action, and the specific combat effectiveness and fighting methods are not very clear. But judging from the situation in the town, it is probably not that powerful.